President Jacob Zuma says the suspension of senior executives at Eskom was necessary as part of an effort to get to the bottom of the problems clouding the parastatal. The president was speaking during a wide-ranging interview with SABC contributing editor Mvoko today. He also expressed his concerns about a series of suspensions within the security and justice cluster, but denied that these were part of a witch hunt against any of the officials concerned.
Mr. President, thank you. Thank you very much once again for agreeing to talk to us. Well, having put so much effort in your State of the Nation address explaining the energy crisis, but also outlining the steps that government was taking in dealing with the problem. Now we have the crisis that Eskom is in. Several executives, have been suspended. One would imagine that you must be feeling like someone is kicking you in the teeth.
Well, I'm not sure about that, whether someone is kicking me on the teeth. As you know, we've been in a situation in Eskom for quite a while now. We, for an example, had new power stations that were being built. One of them should be in full operation by now. But it has been extending the time continuously, and therefore also extending the costs. In the meantime, we have had the problem of load shedding. It didn't seem that there is somebody who's looking at the time frames seriously, because I'm sure when the time frames were made, people were clear what they were talking about. That's one issue that I think people are not looking at. Otherwise, by now, would be getting out of the problem of load shedding. The very fact that it's not finishing, it means you are getting deeper into a problem. Secondly, as the load shedding was coming and people were beginning to put it in phrases, certainly an unusual thing, and I said this shortly after the State of the Nation address, you have power stations that are almost collapsing at the same time. If people remember, I said this is not normal. Why are they collapsing? Why would people say they've not been serviced? What have they been doing all the time? So I felt there was a problem. And I think I expressed this to the minister, that to me, whatever else we are doing, there is a problem. To me, it becomes very clear, you can't vouch to say this is an innocent development. Because if you are working there all the time, just like as you will drive the car, you would know that at this time it needs services. Why not servicing it? Why are they collapsing at the same time? This is what prompted the minister to say, let us look into this a little bit deeper. I would imagine the minister came back and said, look, I think I should take some measures here to look at things. What is actually happening? Because there was nothing that was getting better. If you recall, what was coming out of Eskom, it were only, people are not saying, look, we are working hard, we are getting better. They were saying, in fact, we are in phase, either between phase 2 and 3. Once we get to phase 4, it's going to be worse. The country must be ready. But why are they not turning it around? Now, that's what prompted the minister to say, it looks like something must be looked at. And I agreed. We need to look at why. Because these things to me are quite strange.
Is that, Mr. President, what then led to the suspension of the CEO and the other 3 executives?
Exactly.
But then before we get there, Mr. President, if I may, before we got there, you did acknowledge that there were still lots and lots of problems that needed to be dealt with, hence the money allocations that you were going to make. But you did also somewhat suggest to the nation that the worst was indeed over, that you were in charge of the situation, although you may not have resolved the problems, but you were on top of the situation, you were seized with it. You added that the war room was doing very well and it had its finger on each and every problem that Eskom was experiencing. So it came as a shocker to many people that hardly a month later, the Eskom board is taking this drastic step.
I'm not sure I said they were having the finger on each and every problem. I didn't.
In other words, the problems had been identified.
Yeah, I said the problems are identified.
There was a plan in place to deal with those problems. Yes, we are still going to experience power cuts, but we are on top of the situation.
I said so. And indeed, I had said I've appointed the deputy president to oversee the process. And that, because what I say is based on the reports that are given to me, this is what has happened. And there have been reports that come that indicate that we are dealing with the situation. These are the plans. As you would know, for an example, one of them was the finances, and there was a decision taken that there will be finances that will be found to address the issues. So all of that had been done. But I'm saying, whilst that was happening, these kind of noises were coming out from Eskom. We are actually getting into leading up to the fourth phase. And they were not saying we're going to avoid it. The very same people who must have given information to me that which was saying we are in control. As you can see, this was now contradicting the reports given.
Do you think you were lied to?
Well, I wouldn't say I was lied to, but the facts will speak for themselves. And it was clear to me, this is what made me to sit after the minister had said to me, look, there are problems. As you know, the minister was talking about the cash flow, their problems. I began to think very serious. Why is Mudubi not finishing? It should have finished more than a year ago. And you can't get, I don't know what is the problem. And people are beginning to say we need more money and the time is going. Why a company could have a plan to finish a particular program at a given time, it's not. Secondly, why are the power stations collapsing at the same time? Whilst people giving the reports are saying we are in control, but at the same time, look, we are advancing to the fourth thing. So that is what, that contradiction began to say, there is a problem. When the minister briefed me, I said, let us take an action to stop the gradual sinking into a problem so that we turn the thing around. That's why, therefore, when the minister said we need to deal with specific things, I don't think at this point in time, having not got the latest from the minister, I could go into some details. But when the minister gave me the details, including what I had come to know, I thought it was important that we take a decision so that we don't sit gradually slip into a problem, but let us take drastic measures that are going to turn Eskom around.
But then the Eskom CEO had only been in office for like 6 months.
Yes.
So if one looks at the nature of the problems that you yourself outlined during the State of the Nation address, they couldn't possibly have been, he could not have been the cause of those problems.
Yes, of course, as you know, he arrived there. I don't think he has the knowledge that other people have there. But of course, these were the people he was managing. And it was part of the top management. Because I think the problem was identified that at the top management there is a problem. And people were very clear in the nature of the problems. Once the investigations must be done, and they should be done without them. He had been there 6 months. He had been himself talking. So he should have been given particular information. And I think the chairperson made it very clear. We are not saying these people are guilty. But for the investigation to take place, they must be out. So that for a period which they specify, so that we can do the investigation, come to the real cause and the problem. What is the problem that causes this company to be in such a situation?
Well, speaking of the chairperson, there are people who believe that if anyone had to take the fall, it actually had to be the chairperson himself, because he's been there for more than 4 years.
Of course, yes, that's the view of the people. But he is the chairperson. We have got the executives. These are matters. It does not mean, therefore, the chairperson is clean. Investigation should reveal that, so that we can then say, what, as a chair, were you doing? But you couldn't say everybody must go, because the board controls the company. So it was important that you are able to systematically get into a point where you investigate. And the chairperson is the person with authority to do so. And I think what I've heard, and the minister told me, the board itself has discussed the chairperson, so to speak, which means the process, as the board looks at it, is saying the point you are making, perhaps the chairperson as well. But at the point when the report was given to me, it was not the chairperson. I'm not saying the chairperson will be clean or anybody else, but it was a question of where the problem had been at the top executive, and therefore you needed to investigate. And he's not necessarily the executive, he's the chairperson of the board. So not exactly the same. But what happens in the process of going inside of the investigation, we don't know what the investigation will say about the chair himself.
Well, an impression is formed that the chairperson is in fact protected, and that is why he remains where he is, even though there are other allegations, even including that he has signed, agreements on behalf, committing Eskom to, purchases, that he has taken on, executive director duties, which he wasn't supposed to do. You don't think that that may have just added fuel to the fire?
No, as I say, the investigation, I'm happy that there are people who are making such allegations, because it means there is information available. The investigation will come up with that. And certainly, once that investigation comes, I don't think there will be anyone, if there are allegations and they are proved, who would be protected. I don't think there's anyone who's being protected. If there is that kind of information, I think that will be important material for those who are investigating to investigate even those kind of agreements.
Well, a related question as well, also coming out of the evidence that some people claim to have, which, some of which or most of which haven't been tested, is the question of whether in fact directors and executive and non-executive should be trading with state-owned entities, because that is now part of the problem. That seems to be, part of what is happening within Eskom.
But that is precisely some of the issues that must be investigated, because people and when people work in companies, there is a general belief of the interests, the conflict of interest. Now, I think the investigation will be able to clarify those issues so that proper decisions will be taken. Is that the case? Is it because people are doing business within Eskom that therefore Eskom move in a particular way or not? Those are the matters we would like to know, because you can't explain why Eskom keeps on going down when it has people who are capable managers. What is the problem?
Do you have a position on the matter, personal? What would be your preference, personally?
No, I think every company has its own rules, let alone what I can feel. This is what we need to get before we form an opinion. This is what we want to get. Is Eskom having the regulations that regulates who does business with it or not? Can people inside do business? What are the rules saying? It is important not to preempt that. I think it's important to know, is everything that we need to investigate. If there are no rules, is this not the issue? This is what we need to get from the report so that it would give us an opportunity to take an appropriate decision.
Mr. President, allow us to take a quick short ad break. We will be back.
Thank you very much.
Welcome back, and if you've just joined us, we're in conversation with President Jacob Zuma. Mr. President, I want us to talk now about the goings-on within and among the agencies of the criminal justice system. A lot has been going on over the past few weeks. In the latest incident yesterday, Police Minister Nathi Nhleko suspended IPID Chief Robert McBride. Are you concerned at all with the goings-on within these agencies that include the Hawks, that include the NPA?
Well, of course, everyone should be concerned about that, because you need those institutions really to be very tight. Nothing should go any other way. It's not, I don't think it's easy to comment on everything, because other things, if there has been no one who comes with a report to say this is what is happening, it may not even be easy to make comments. But I know for a fact that insofar as Minister Nhleko is concerned, he had indicated the things he found as a minister. For example, there were reports that were there, and he had taken a resolution is going to act on these reports, which include the report that is touching on what has happened to the suspension, for an example, of Officer McBride. He had indicated, and to say his view was that you can't sit with these reports, they're serious, without acting. And therefore he started a process to deal with those reports. He has not come back to say what he has found and what has happened. He has taken action. He has indicated, given the fact of those reports, he is moving to take specific actions as he presented to me, to try to deal with the problems that are there. Now, it's a very difficult one when the matter is at a level where it is. There is not a completion of the report to get a full story as to what happened. But people, for an example, that I've heard complaining that what is happening are people who have been saying government does not act when people do wrong things. I don't know, sitting here, what is it that government must do? If people don't act, they're wrong. If they act, they're wrong. From the certain quarter where these complaints are coming publicly, I was saying to myself, what is government supposed to do? They've been saying Minister of Police is not taking action all the time. When the Minister of Police takes action, why is he taking action? What is it? I don't think people should politicize these things, really, at least insofar as the police are concerned, because the minister did say, here I am, I'm in this department, these are the reports I'm coming. I think I need to take some action. And I cannot sit, because I will be asked why I'm not acting. And therefore, I'm beginning a process to act. To me, what has been happening is how the minister is acting. I know people who could, if they were talking about the technicalities, whether these things were done properly or not, is a different matter. But for the police, who is a political in charge, to move on the matters that he thinks he should move on, I don't know what else. Because if he did not, people would say, you people are protecting your people, you're not moving, etc.
I think you've actually touched on it, Mr. President, because in the McBride incident, there's a suggestion that there was one report at some stage, there is now another report, so which is which? And there's also allegations that he tried to get other officers not to cooperate with whatever investigation that there was. Let's put that aside, since you and I don't have too many facts on that one. But how then do we explain the Hawks bosses one? Because Mr. Dramat is facing serious allegations of rendition, right? But he has not been criminally charged. He has also is not facing any disciplinary action. That one is a bit anomalous. While people may understand perhaps on the McBride issue, it's difficult to understand on the Dramat one. And that's where that's where we see anomalies.
Well, again, I wouldn't have all the details. But if I remember when this issue emerged, it emerged because, as I understood, the minister said, I wanted to suspend you. Do you have, what would you say that must make me not to suspend you? That's a normal process that you undertake. Either I think perhaps that is what the minister should do. I thought that Dramat was challenging that he was not given that kind of an opportunity. He was just suspended.
And twice the courts ruled in his favor.
Yes. Now, I'm saying you could therefore technically say the minister here, the court itself said the minister is not right, which is a point. It's a technical point. Fact of the matter, the report that the minister indicated did implicate Dramat. So in the process of dealing with that report, it is a question of technically or legally how he handled it, which is a matter that the court has expressed his views about. And they are dealing with it as an issue. But it's not as if there was nothing, because that report, as the minister reported to me, did implicate. Whether the implication is fair or not, or is correct or not, is a different matter. But the minister was saying, I can't sit with this report, I must act. If, for an example, he believes or believed that if he was in his position, whatever investigation is going to be making, he will interfere if he's in a position. Therefore, the normal thing is to say, suspend. How then you suspend? That is a different matter. And I think that's where there was a going to court and going up and down to court.
What would happen, I know it's a bit of a hypothetical one, but what would happen given everything that has been happening and the name calling and the toing and froing and the undermining of ordinary South Africans' confidence in the justice system, together with the allegations that certain people are being protected or this is being done to them because they don't like this one and so on and so on. What if you were to find that the minister was wrong?
Of course, if the minister was wrong. I'm sure there are matters of procedures. They differ in degrees. If, for an example, it was found that the minister was wrong, therefore an action would be taken.
Against the minister?
Of course, yes. There's nobody who must be protected.
Now, the problems of the criminal justice system agencies do not end there. You will have read today and last night the, Director of Public Prosecutions doesn't know where the former acting Director of Public Prosecutions, Ms. Nomgcobo Jiba, is. Police want to serve her with a summons. She's nowhere to be found. And if you look also at what she did, listening to what the Durban High Court found, it was that Ms. Jiba's decision to prosecute Major General Boyson could not meet even the barest minimum requirements. What do you think that does to the credibility and reputation of the NPA? Well,
I'm not a legal person. I don't know. I know that there are very clear rules and ways that system operates. And at times, a person will be sentenced, very harsh sentence. Another court will acquit that person. It has always been a miracle to me. And therefore, a decision taken by another officer or another officer is a matter really that needs experts to look at it. I can't make any kind of judgment to that one. I would have imagined that there was a case, and that case, in a sense, has moved out of the space, and people might feel that somebody took a wrong decision. And that could be the kind of matter. I think sitting here, I can't say, look, this is what happened. It is unfortunate that we reached such a situation. I'm sure when people think that there was something wrong done, they would therefore think that this is a particular action to be undertaken. I can't comment. I'm not qualified to say what's happened. It's an unfortunate situation that high-ranking officers in the NPA, you have this kind of a situation going there. What will happen at the end, I don't know. As I say, legal people take different decisions on different matters. At times, not always, at times. So even that one, it does not mean that if you have an institution of this nature, nothing wrong, no mistakes are made. These people are human beings. Even judges, at times, do give judgments that other judges say they made a mistake, either in a technical issue or whatever. So what is happening in that space is just an unfortunate thing that I'm not well versed with the details of what has happened, except to hear from the news at the moment.
Well, you may be right, Mr. President, but it should be worrying that someone of Ms. Jiba's stature, I mean, she's also a former acting director of public prosecutions, could not meet, as the judge said, the barest minimum of requirements. It then begins to suggest or give credence, at least, to all manner of allegations that have been made, that people are at each other's throat for reasons other than pursuing justice without fear or favor.
Well, I can't really comment on it because I don't even know the facts. Why is the judge saying so when another prosecutor took particular decisions? I've heard very harsh expressions expressed by other judges. Others will say a different thing. So I can't say, yes, this is the case. I think the process itself will indicate which is which here. What is it that was happening? Are people scoring points or whatever, or have attitude or whatever? I don't know. People who are dealing with these matters, I think they are better placed to say what is happening. Because, I mean, you say this, for example, the allegations as really articulated against the Kitomen group were very serious. I don't think there's a prosecutor who would say, I can't prosecute from the layman's point of view. Now, I don't know what does that mean if the judge says this, because those allegations were public. And insofar as the public is concerned, there were murders, there were every other thing. Now, if you're a prosecutor and you don't take the decision to prosecute, people are going to say, but why are you not prosecuting when people are being accused? So that's why I'm saying it's difficult to comment on legal things, because we look at it from a layman's point of view, what we hear, what we read. Now, if the judge says so, you can imagine if I was a relative of that person that people are accused to have killed. What would be my own view? That's why I'm saying we can't, at this level, make comments on matters that have not been tested and therefore proper decisions taken. That's why I said it's an unfortunate situation that you have this kind of a situation which we ought not to have in such institutions.
Mr. President, we're going to take another quick break. Welcome back. You're watching SABC News, and we're in conversation with President Jacob Zuma. I want to turn my attention now, if I may, Mr. President, to some comments you made yesterday at the SALGA conference. Lots of issues were being raised there. But I want to start with the issue of accountability and good governance and corruption, which was a big issue even after you had left in the session that we were in. What, in your view, is what would you say is the biggest single contributor to this problem not being eliminated, certainly not with the speed and vigor that many people feel it should? The Auditor General, for example, was part of a session that I was part of, where he said a lot has been done to try and really drive this point home. We are not short of legislation, he said. We have every piece of legislation we need, but there seems to be a lack of willingness, if you like, to actually deal with the people. In other words, there are no consequences.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think there has been some actions taken to some people. The actions might not have been enough, given perhaps the size of the problem. There are many, many issues, I think, that come up. One of them, for an example, that has been identified has been the lack of skills, of capacity in the municipalities. It has also been said there are people who are employed when they are not necessarily employed because they can do the job, that other people employ them for other reasons. Is one of the key. That's why we were saying people must not employ people because they know them, because they are friends. once the job or the space is there, the appropriate person must be employed. And the point I also raised was that people who are employed for specific skills, they must do the job because they are there employed to do something. They then take the job to the consultants. They should take to the consultants what is highly technical, which they cannot do. But it cannot be a norm that the work is done here by consultancies, because that has its own consequences as well. We have been dealing with the matters. For an example, with regard to Auditor General's reports, the bulk of it says there are no proper systems. If there are systems, people are not equal to the task of implementing the systems as they are. For an example, one of the point we have come to know, when the Auditor General says the financial reports are qualified or whatever, the impression given is that the money has been stolen. In reality, it means whilst the money was used, but it was not used according to the rules, etc. But that is not necessarily explained down the line. Where they say these are unqualified kind of reports, it means people did follow the system to the latter. So there are many things that happened that needs proper explanations. But the fact that there are people who are not equal to the task is a challenge that we are faced with in government. One of the glaring examples, where it is easy to give this example, for an example, is what Minister Mtswaledi of Health has been saying, that you find a teacher being in charge of the hospital and he knows nothing about medicine. These are kind of things that we found have been happening over the time. We are now addressing them. That example then tells you that if you are in a municipality and we've got somebody who does not have the proper qualification, that person could be really making mistakes because of out of ignorance. But others, it does not say there is no corruption, no people who either take advantage of that situation or who deliberately bring people not to work but to perpetuate wrong things. These are the things we're then talking about. It is worrying because at the municipality level, that's where delivery is given. And that's where, if we are not doing the right thing, that's where you make the people get very angry.
But then Minister Pravin Gordhan, from the time he was the Minister of Finance, had started dealing with the problem, the issue of qualifications, for example.
Yes.
Saying we have to deal with this thing because it's not taking us anywhere. He is now the minister responsible for local government, and he has been on this issue. Added to that, his talk about back to basics. But if you look at what is happening in the local government space, no one seems to be listening to him. No one seems to be supporting him. No one seems to be responding to the call of let's go and get everyone to produce qualifications or proof of qualifications, and those who do not qualify to occupy certain jobs, get them out of the system. If anything, there is an increasing effort, certainly on the part of people who are operating at local government, to actually paint him as the wrong guy, the guy who is refusing to give them what is duly theirs, including increasing their salaries. That's what I picked up yesterday from there.
Absolutely.
But does not even talk about the things that he has raised consistently over the years. They are now piling, in fact, to his problems by making him now their enemy.
But that is precisely the issue. That when these things are said, if there is no action, you then sit and say, what can you do? That's part of the reason Pravin Gordhan is there. Because we have sent a minister who is going to begin to deal with these issues. And I think he is indeed dealing with the issues. It's a question of how do we support his programs, for an example. The back to basics, for an example, is an important one because it says, let us do the simple things that will make the municipalities operate totally different than what they've been doing before. And he leads that. We need to support him. What we need to come, the issues we're raising, for an example, yesterday, we're now making the municipality community aware of the issues. What we need, because he has made the issue, he has gone there, made a discovery, he has walked through, he has crisscrossed the country. He's now in a better position to say, this is what I think we need to do. We now need to put time frames on specific things, including what you are saying, to get into an office and say, where are the papers? That's a program we need now to work on. What is important is that there is now a general agreement that these are problems. And therefore, nobody's going to say or take the accusations that, in fact, he is the enemy. Because those who say so will be the people who are actually saying, let us not talk about the truth, let us hide the truth. And it means we must therefore have a program to deal with those people, particularly if they are at a leadership level. Because it is them who are going to make us sit with the problem forever. So we are now going to say, this is a second gathering that he has called. And I think making everybody aware, we now need to say, how do we move forward? We need very specific programs, and I'm sure it's going to produce that.
Well, I mean, the skeptics among us are saying it'll probably never happen. Because remember, Mr. President, when you started your first term, you called a summit. And there were targets there that were set. Clean audits by year, whatever, and all those good things. 5 years later, you had another summit. And many of those deadlines and targets hadn't been met. If you listen to the Auditor General saying it's the simple things of people having to do the simple things right, and they are just not doing that. If you listen, if you take what Minister Pravin Gordhan has been doing, which is say, just get everyone to produce evidence of their qualifications, and those who can't produce those, take them out. Now, all these things have been happening over the years and the point one is trying to make is that at what point will enough be enough?
Well, I'm not sure in terms of government what enough will be enough. If you talk about the Auditor General, we have said Auditor General at a given time comes to the cabinet. And I can tell you there has been progress in the manner in which he reports, including the performance of the local government. It's not at the same point where it was at the beginning. And we had engagement with him. He comes to report. And that is what he said. Yes, problems are still there, but we're making progress. He even said it in public. So it's not as if nothing has happened.
No, everyone agrees with that,
Yes.
Mr. President, that a lot of progress has been made. There's no doubt about that.
Okay.
But what certain people raised, certainly in one of the sessions that I was part of yesterday, was that 20 years down the line, should we be as lenient or should we be as soft, in tolerating certain things as we were 10 or 15 years ago? In other words, I remember one analyst saying, we should be at a point now where we're saying, we know that a lot of things are going right and there's no doubts about that, and that's not where we are. The question is, what are we doing with the things that are wrong? And everybody should accept that. In other words, we shouldn't, the councillors and everyone who is in that space shouldn't behave like spoiled little brats who want to be praised for every criticism that is being leveled against them.
Well, dealing with government, you're dealing with a very huge machinery. I'm not sure that in government you can say everything now is fine. I think even the oldest governments in the world, the important thing is what percentage is there that is doing things right? What percentage that is doing things wrong? If there are people who are doing things wrong, what action do you take? Now, democracy is a system that is time-consuming, very costly. We were very critical, for an example, of when a person is doing a wrong thing, dismissed, end of the story. We now have laws that says verbal warning, and it takes time. Written warning, it takes its own time. Final written warning, the system has changed. It's no longer like before. If somebody is not doing, you say, out of my gate, end of the story. Today, the rights of the people employed have to be considered. So the system itself is a system that does not say what you are saying. You are doing the thongring, out you go, because you'll be breaking the law. In the democratic system, we have got to follow a system in a particular way. For an example, as a result of that kind of thing, if you don't want a person to interfere, whatever, if you suspend, you have got to pay a person. Some people stay for or up to 6 months a year because the system says so. It is a system that allows the things to move in a particular way. You must have a particular way to deal with matters. I'm sure you were not there when I was there. I made a joke and I said, if I could be given 6 months to be a dictator, I can fix many things.
Why don't you be a dictator?
Dictatorship is not allowed these days. Democracy is allowed. I've said to our people, for an example, in the countries where there are rulers, there's a lot of progress they've made without any meeting. A ruler comes and says, I need this, and it happens. The point I'm making, if there are criticisms, they should be measured against the system within which these things are taking place. You know, for an example, and I've heard this. I sit at times and say, this minister I don't think is performing. And I can't stand up and tell people. And I take a decision. And you know the kind of criticisms that come to me by that decision. That tells you people think differently, in different ways. If we do nothing, they say, this president is just sitting when ministers are messing up. Now, I'm just saying, we are operating in a space that is not like black and white things as such. And therefore, that's why we are putting the systems. What, for an example, Pravin Gordhan is doing, firstly, is to bring these matters into the open. Call our attention, this is what is happening. We must then say, are we all agreed? Some people were still disagreeing with him, as you say yesterday. But you need the broader opinion to agree that if we are all agreed, what action do we need to take? We must then, because that's what the system requires. If he just came and said, these are all wrong, out you go, he will be said, what type of a minister is this one? He will actually break many laws and regulations and rules. So I'm just saying, those who are criticizing should take into account the environment within which we are operating as a democracy in South Africa.
Mr. President, we're going to take another quick ad break. After the break, I want us to turn our attention. I want to ask you party political matters, if may. Welcome back. We are in conversation with President Jacob Zuma. Mr. President, turning our attention now to ANC matters. There's supposed to be a National General Council, a policy conference this year. Is that still taking place?
Yes, it will be taking place this year. Probably not necessarily at the usual period of the year, which is usually June-like. I think a few months later, but it is taking place.
Is there a reason for the postponement?
Yes, absolutely. Very clear reasons. As you know, the ANC Youth League has to go to a conference, the Women's League has to go to a conference, the Veterans League have to go to the conference. And we wanted this conference to take place first before the NGC. That is the reason.
Well, apart from the ANC Youth League, perhaps, but were there reasons, particular reasons for the other components not to have had, the leagues to have had their...
No, they haven't had their what call. That's why we give them an opportunity. Because they must have. Because the NGC must look at the total health of the broader ANC. So we can't have the NGC before these ones. Because it will mean we'll have no clearer report about the leaks if we did so. That was just a logical thing to happen.
Well, the alliance is also in trouble. I mean, it hasn't met in a couple of years now. Are you concerned at all? Absolutely.
As you know, there has been issues with the alliance that have taken place, and certainly the Cosatu component over a period has been in some difficulties, and it has not been easy. So the interaction has been not necessarily in one room, but the ANC has made interventions, engaged the secretariat of the alliance, meets continuously, and also there has been interactions between individually, bilaterally, at certain levels. There has been also coming together, but we have not had a bigger kind of a meeting wherein you'd call either summit or whatever, where we discuss many other issues. We have been looking at issues, for an example, in Cosatu, that at some point they will reach a finality. We even made a contribution to try to bring about the finality. It is clear that the issues are quite difficult to resolve. That's the reason why I've made a call that for us really to look at these issues, all of us together, because we need to have unity, firstly, of our organizations individually, but also of the alliance as it is, so that we can unite the citizens of this country. And that's why I've made a call that all the three leading bodies should actually meet, not just for an afternoon or one-day meeting, a meeting that is going to place all the issues on the table so that we can discuss these matters and discover where are the problems and begin to take decisions that will make all of us collectively responsible for us to move forward. That's what we are trying to do, and I think that will help us, because we are going to be, there are issues at times some people may want to clarify or ask questions, so that will bring that kind of opportunity. We'll say, but why are you doing X, Y, Z? Why? And somebody will explain so that we understand why is a problem. And we will then say, how then do we resolve the issue? And we believe this is how the issue should be resolved. Are we agreed? If we don't, why don't we agree? So that we can interact in a manner that will help us move towards resolving the matter and therefore bringing about unity and cohesion.
But as things stand, I mean, Cosatu in particular, it doesn't look like Cosatu's warring factions are going to come together or find a common understanding anytime soon. So what, in your view, should be done differently? Because, as you say, it's going to be extremely difficult for you to go to your policy conference if the respective components of the tripartite alliance are not within and among themselves sorting their stuff out before they even come to the bigger alliance.
That's why we are creating this opportunity, that let us meet instead of hoping against hope or meeting one component at the time or meeting some people at the time. Let us come together. That is the way we believe we can discuss every issue and find solutions to every issue. If there are issues that we don't agree, then we should agree how to handle those issues for the sake of our unity as the alliance, as the individual organizations. I don't think there is any other way, because if we don't debate, we don't discuss the matters, then it's not easy to find a solution. But if we discuss, we'll certainly find solutions.
Well, the elephants in the room within Cosatu are the issue of the General Secretary of the Federation, but also the issue of NUMSA's expulsion. What, in your view, should be done?
Let us discuss all of those matters as well in that kind of discussion, so that you don't hear the issues given from one angle and another angle at different times. Let us put everything in the pot so that we look at them. What are the issues with the General Secretary? Should we find a solution to them? Let us find a solution. There is no problem that we cannot find a solution. What is the issue with NUMSA? I'm sure NUMSA might have his own views, But if it still considers itself as part of the people who, from a broader progressive crawl, so to speak, let us come and discuss. What are the issues that made NUMSA to leave? We're not there in that meeting. We're keen because to us, these are our colleagues and comrades. Let us have a moment to discuss. Let us see whether we could not persuade one another. If yes, we cannot, then we would reach that point. We would then know that, look, these matters cannot be resolved. We would then say, if that is the case, what then do we do? I don't think we'll fail to find a solution.
Do you think the ANC, Mr. President, is angry at NUMSA's stance that it didn't want to support the ANC at the last election and said all manner of things against your administration and against the ANC? No, the ANC is not angry at all because NUMSA has a right to have his views. That's precisely the reason why we need to meet and hear why are they advancing those kind of views, and explain perhaps what they might not know, and perhaps persuade them that their views are not correct, either for immediate or short term or the long term, or for the positions that we have been collectively holding. What has changed? That is what we need to do, to engage, so that we know exactly what are the problems, so that we can explain and discover where do we actually disagree. You might find that the disagreements are not as people think, and then we are able to close the gap. But that could only be done if we engage. Very briefly, Mr. President, on the ANC Youth League in particular, do you think the problems that made it impossible for the Youth League to have an elective conference last year, have those problems disappeared? In other words, will it be easy for the Youth League this time around to actually confront those problems head on and perhaps more importantly have its elective conference before the policy conference of the ANC? Well, hopefully we believe they should, because if we talk about the Youth League, we are not actually talking about the school children. We are talking about people who understand, and I think they must have understood why the decision was taken, for an example, to change the conference. And I'm sure everybody must be reflecting on that. And therefore, the next kind of conference, it must be a conference that could produce results. You can't go to a conference and say, we are going there to cause problems, and think that people are going to allow that to happen. And therefore, I think all of us will be in our good senses to say, let us have the ANC Youth League conference to produce good results, so that you have a properly elected leadership that must then lead the ANC Youth League. And to someone who said, actually, the ANC Youth League could have had that outcome that you're looking for now, last year, but it was the ANC's failure to actually show leadership by telling one man not to stand for election. That was a problem. And that is why you now you're finding the ANC Youth League having to convene yet another conference. Well, I don't know about one man being told not to stand. I don't remember the ANC taking that decision. I hope... Not saying it's the failure of the ANC to deal with that one man that actually held everything up. No, I don't know. Who is that man? Pulemabe. Is that so? I don't know that. I actually don't know that. I think there were candidates going there, and people were coming. And there were issues that had arisen, wherein the very conferences of the Youth League in different regions and provinces, people were actually up even fighting. Those are the issues we considered. We did not take a decision on one isolated. In fact, that issue never featured in any formal agenda of the ANC, whether in the NEC or working committee. It didn't. We then said, given what was happening in the organization, and the fact that some delegates were saying we are going there even if they were not delegates, to come and deal with the situation. We thought we don't want what happened in the previous kind of conference. And therefore we took a decision, not because of one man. That one I don't know. We took a decision on the basis of what has been happening with regard to the structures of the ANC Youth League. Mr. President, we have unfortunately run out of time. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much
Thank
indeed.
you very much.
Thank you.